Hello.
So, do we want to go in order again for the jigsaws?
Sure, that worked fine.
Alright, so mine was, I think it was Sloppin' and Seal's, I think like an Indian article. Or Through the Eyes, something like that, Through the Eyes of an Indian, or
Oh, you
I
mean
can't remember.
the article and
It's not in there.
Oh,
It was online.
Oh, right, duh.
But it was all about how to evaluate texts that included Native American culture. And at the beginning it like emphasized that a lot of Native American culture is considered private. So like they don't share it with people who are outsiders.
Oh, yeah.
But they kind of gave examples, or they did give examples of like high quality and low quality texts. And so they like went through and had different elements that they said you should look at when considering these texts. One was like how are elders portrayed, how are women portrayed. There were quite a few. How is history depicted? Is it distorted or not? And one thing that surprised me was it talked about whether or not Native peoples were displayed as being only in the past or whether they're still in the present.
Oh, yeah. They're talking about that in the article in this book, right? About like how like time was perceived or something like that.
Mm-hmm. They referred to it as like, I think the disappearing Native myth or something like that. And so like they're kind of, the literature's kind of worded so it seems like because they were like forced off their land and everything that
They're just
no
gone.
longer, that they're pretty much just gone.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, like there's kind of a point to that. Like I hadn't really thought about before, but there is kind of like that. Oh, the Native Americans are in the past, but no, they're still here today. It's just,
I think it might have just been really shocking to me because I've grown up here in the Northwest where we're surrounded by Native communities.
Yeah, like the Lummi and...
Yeah, Lummi, and I live by the Swinomish community and everything, so like, I don't know, maybe that's why it was such a shock to me that there is text that exists that depict them as living in the past. But it really helps to see how you can look through that critical lens to analyze these kind of texts. And then it asked to compare it to Woodring's mission of social justice. And the part in the mission that stood out to me was that it said, act with respect for individual differences and develop collaborative partnerships that promote learning and well-being of individuals, families, and the community, which to me really spoke to the article, basically just about respecting different cultures and differences within those cultures and helping to shed light on like how they're not lesser, we're all equal.
That's nice. I've actually like never read that part of like the conduct.
I haven't either, but yeah. So that was
Interesting. I like how you connected it. Okay, person Z. So my response was about an article that was called Thoughts on Teaching Native American Literature, and it was just like a little short article, and it had 4 guidelines to teaching Native American literature like properly. I thought it was interesting. I liked the guidelines a lot just because they work for not just for Native American literature but for other different types of literature. So the first one was to clearly define what you mean by Native American, and I really like that, like having like a set definition so students can know what they're actually talking about and not really think about other definitions they may know. He said that his definition was how it's many nations within this nation.
I like that point a lot, yeah, because I hadn't even really, like, once again, I hadn't really thought about it much, because, like, we think Native Americans, and some of us think, like, I don't know, like Thanksgiving or something like that, but really there's just, like, so many different tribes with different customs, different languages, and, like, it's amazing that, like, it isn't more explored, you know, because it is so much part of our nation's history. It's like, yeah, I liked how they said that many nations within a nation, you know. But, sorry, I just
no, that was good. That was good. Don't worry about it. But I liked how he defined what Native American really meant. just so they had something to go off to.
Yeah, it's helpful.
And it kind of like sets the standards for like, it's pretty complex. Like there's gonna be things within things, so you need to like pay attention and find connections. The second guideline was to teach the work in context, which means that you have to make the information really come alive or seem real. So he was discussing how like he's trying to teach his kids about like traditional like chants, and so he would have them learn the chant.
Oh, that's
and like
cool.
understand what the chant is actually like meaning and what it's meant for. So I really like that, kind of getting more interactive with what you're learning.
Yeah, kind of making it like apply to different types of learning styles too. Because like when you said that, I thought like musical learners, like people who can like learn really fast through music and really connect with music. So
Yeah, I mean it's not just like they sang this chant to do this. It's like we're gonna sing this chant. You're gonna see what it's like.
yeah, you're gonna connect to it.
So I thought that was like really like immersing the students into the program.
I remember sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, this is gonna go on a little story. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I went to Lowell, and I love this teacher, Mrs. Zafarados. She did this whole unit on Native American culture, and we actually got into a big circle, and they played Native American music. I'm pretty sure it was like Lummi chants. And like we had to like get up when we felt like it, when we were comfortable, and get up and do a dance along to the chant and actually like really interact and make up our own thing with it. I always remember that, and I thought it was so cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
The third guideline is to pay attention to continuancy. Continuance, yeah. Meaning like Native American novels think of time differently, so you have to be able to apply like the right time. Like we're talking about like day versus night, like 1 o'clock versus 2 o'clock. So we talked about how that was pretty important, just to like make the connections between different times. I don't know, I thought that was interesting. It was a little hard for me to grasp, but it made sense. And then the final guideline, he said it was be wary of work in translation, meaning like make sure that you are respectful towards the culture, and you pick resources that will be respectful. And it's also more of like making sure that it's accurate, and how like sometimes like when things are translated into English, they can get a little bit messy.
Yeah.
So he said to make sure like you're picking accurate things and making sure everything is like unflawed and really down to it.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that they're saying in one of the articles was like seeing if you can get a translation that was done by a native speaker. So I think like that's kind of like the most accurate way to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of looking back into the sources and authors of different texts, so doing your research.
And then the last question I had was to see how the tunnels chapter on multicultural literature, how it like helps with these guidelines. And so when I like went back and reread the chapter for multicultural literature, they started out by saying like the most important part about picking multicultural books is that they need to create positive experiences, which include like being aware of things, understanding that cultures are different from others. And so I was able to take the guidelines and kind of like flip them. So like the guideline on where is it? Being the weary one of translation kind of really connects to like cultural authenticity. I can't talk about
authenticity.
And how it like kind of like structured for it. Like I don't know, like if that makes sense. It was like structure, like the base, and then it kind of like built up from there. That's kind of how I thought about it. How it like really enhanced what Tunnel was saying. Like they really connected. I didn't really notice it at first, and then I did. So it took a little bit of reading, but yeah.
Sweet. So I guess I'll go next because so yeah, I was back in. I can never say it. Is it Tunnel or Tunnel?
Tunnel, I think.
Tunnel.
It was Tunnel.
I would say tunnel.
Okay, yeah. So I'll at least put on my tunnel vision. Anyway, so yeah, I was doing his chapter 8 on poetry, and first like I had to go through and like make a list kind of thing and evaluate what he thought were the ways to make get students to appreciate poetry more. I thought this was a good point because like a lot of times we hear our little poetry unit, we're like, oh, okay, we'll write a few little diddly poems and we're done. But I just thought he made a lot of good points, like making poetry not just about like things that were written by old dead people, you know, like making it alive and modern and current. Like they're using the poet Shel Silverstein.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, right. I can still like recite so many of his poems, which is like a good testament to how this worked. You know, it was fun. So yeah, fun, lighthearted, relatable poems, because like those were relating to childhood a lot. And then using that, like using the fun, lighthearted poems to get them used to it, and using it as kind of like a bridge to more complex poetry later on. One thing that I liked a lot what he said was a teacher who shares poems every day with no ulterior motive, just sharing poetry. Like, there's no poetry unit, it's just like a part of the daily curriculum. I thought that was a really good point, because then it's making it seem less like a chore to do poetry and more just like it's everywhere. We're actually talking about that in the writing class about like poetry is just kind of like you can find it everywhere. And like one thing that they did, sorry, I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent, but this one group in the book I'm reading for that class, they went around their school and on like sticky notes they found places where they thought a poem would apply. You remember reading that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I thought like a water fountain or something, and then they had to find a poem that could go there, and they had to put it there. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that so bad.
Everywhere. I liked that.
Oh, so cool.
I read this is kind of a sidetrack, but the Georgia Hurd book, Awakening the Heart.
I'm reading that right now, yeah.
I loved it, and it's all about, like, helping students to see poetry in what they write, even if it's not, like, follows any strict rhyme scheme or anything, like helping them to see that, oh, this is a poem, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I like what you're saying, like that it doesn't have to follow some strict structure, because like kids think a lot like, oh, like a haiku has to be 5-7-5, or it has to be just like this. But no, I really like that this book and that the Awakening the Heart are really just saying poetry is everywhere. You can find it in just like in your regular writing, like. I remember I was saying to my group, I was like, that's perfect for a writer's notebook to write your poetry in, you know? Like, when you're just like out and about and you have just some really poetic line that your friend says or something like that. So I find that a lot in the readings that we do. And I'm like, oh, I really like this line. Like in the Crossing Bachito, like the line where his voice seemed to smile. Like, I was like,
that's cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would write that in my writer's notebook as something very poetic. Anyway, I digress. Another one was reading poems aloud, and there's a whole part in this about like doing like read-alouds and taking turns reading poetry. So kids like that, so it's kind of like interacting and making the poems kind of come alive. And then one I liked was, especially for older students, using current popular songs to put poems to, and like encourage poetry through like things that they can relate to and enjoy, like taking a poem and putting it to the beat of, I don't know, Thrift Shop or something.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool way to help it relate to kids, because you know they're modern kids. They like their pop music and all.
You're right.
Then, like I was just saying, choral, audible poems, like sharing out loud. One I also liked was sharing many forms of poetry, like having a really wide variety, not just like, this is a sonnet, haiku, we're done. But no, like, like just sharing all types, because you never know when there's going to be that one that a kid really relates to. Like, oh my gosh, I love so-and-so's form of this poem. I want to write all like that. And one was, don't rely solely on textbooks for poems, because first of all, there's like the copyright stuff that can come along with it, and you don't want to get in trouble with that. But also, like, you want to be able to encourage that finding poetry everywhere kind of deal. So, like, looking for it in different places. So, in part 2 of what I had to do was finding a poem in the book that I wanted to share. And so, this was one that I always liked. It's called the Concrete Poems. It's I'm going to show it on the camera.
Oh, making them.
Yeah, like into like a little picture. Wake up, camera. So it's like, if you can even see that, it's like a little flamingo shape. There you go. Well, camera's fuzzy. Anyway. But yeah, like,
That's cool.
yeah, like I always remember these from elementary school, like,
A little artistic in there.
And kids love it. I was in my 3rd grade class and they were doing things like that. They were doing
Oh, yeah?
cats and bunnies
so
and
cool.
things in their lives that they found interesting and wanted to write a poem about. And so they were making those poems and it was really cool.
That's really neat. I remember one time I saw one that was shaped like a fish. It was like all curvy. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? I want to write a poem like that. So, and like it's funny, it's not even many words. It's just like, a flamingo is a long, cool drink of something pink. It's just like a little line like that, and yeah, it's this cool looking poem. And like you're saying, kids were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then yeah, like they just had like a whole bunch in here, and like I actually had trouble picking which poem I wanted to share, but I picked that one because it goes along with the variety of poems. Like yeah, you have your haikus and sonnets, but then you have this weird thing about a flamingo. It's in the shape of a flamingo. So yeah, so that was my little unit.
Yeah.
I think that way it kind of incorporates that visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like the artistic students.
Yeah.
Right.
Ones who maybe don't want to write might want to write a poem like that because then they can make this picture out of the words and.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like I know I was that kid in school who was like always drawing on my desk or something like that. Shh. No, I got caught like every single time. Remember, I was so mad too when they erased my pictures. Anyway.
What do you guys think of the books?
Yeah, what did you think of it? Just because it's poetry, The Suitcase of Seaweed.
I liked that one. I really liked how like in the beginning of like each like culture it would say like the author's take, like I am American because I am blah blah blah, and it's like I am Korean because this is where I came from. It kind of made the book a little bit more credible.